Hey guys, this is Finance Ease, and you are listening to Finance Ease podcast series. I'm your host Himanshu Jain. In this podcast series, we are going to have a real chat with industry experts on investments, markets, and macro analysis. Also, young finance enthusiasts who are bringing change to the industry and how their career unfolded in the world of money management. They all are going to be our guests too. Stay tuned. In this episode today, we bring you a guest who belongs to the venture capital industry. Now, to tell you about the VC fund, it is one of the most sought and challenging careers in finance. To provide you the insider picture, we have a guest tonight who has played an active role in evaluating hundreds of startups, dealing with several founders, incubators, and angel networks. And he is part of the team which is quite active in the early stage investing space. Now, if we take a look back at his academics, he graduated from Mumbai University and passed all three levels of CFA and FRM Part 1. While in his career, he previously worked as a private equity analyst for Tresvista and currently working as an investment analyst with a leading venture fund in the space, which is Artha Venture Fund. By now, you probably have one thing in mind that the guest is one intelligent man. And yeah, you are absolutely correct. But there is more to the story. We have been following the guest's post on his blog where he shares his experience in the industry, and we were quite impressed. And we couldn't resist inviting him to the show. And he was also keen on sharing his knowledge and experience for the greater good. He is an avid reader, writes frequently on venture capital, and has set an example of how hard work pays off in the end. We are more than delighted to have Mr. Farhan Merchant as a guest on our podcast today. Hello, Farhan. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi Himanshu, it's a pleasure to be here. I think it's a great platform for every young finance enthusiast, anyone who's just gotten into finance or looking to get into finance. I think we need some content, some sort of uh, touch points for them to access before they make their decision. So I commend you for starting this podcast, and I'm very glad to be the first venture capital participant with in it.
Thank you so much for the kind appreciation of the podcast. Thanks, Farhan. How have you been?
I'm doing well, thanks. As good as one can be um, during the sort of curfew that we've been under for the past 6, 7 months. But so we are based out of Mumbai, so Mumbai is slowly starting to open up. So I wouldn't say life is going back to normal, but we're sort of getting more adapted to the new normal. Let's just say that.
And you are in the VC industry, okay? And VC is all about meeting people and doing that stuff. How things are moving forward from here right now?
I think it's one of the classic cases where you have to adapt to what's going on in the world, right? VC is no exception. Obviously, a huge part of what we do as analysts is deal flow, and for deal flow, you have to be very visible out there in the VC circle. So we had to keep attending events, speaking to various incubators, accelerators, bankers, anyone we can to keep our ears close to the ground, right? But eventually, all of this there was no option for it but to move online, right? So we sort of had to adapt as well. A lot of these events have moved online, so it's just a change in sort of avenue. Everything remains the same, but it's just that we've gone from a physical uh, let's say touch point to a virtual touch point, right? So we all have to improvise, adapt, overcome, and I think venture capital is no different.
And you have to adapt as fast as possible, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, see, what happens is uh, it's all a race, right? Unfortunately or fortunately, we're all part of a race. So if we're not agile enough to adapt as quick as the times call for it, someone else is going to beat us to that, and then we're just going to be playing catch up all along. So I think it's very important for us to be flexible in our schedules, flexible in our approach to our work or to our craft rather, and make those turns as they come along, right? If you're not, I mean, we tell our startups to be agile. So as a fund and as professionals ourselves, I think we should take some of our own advice as well.
Correct, totally correct. Farhan, to begin with this episode, if you could start with your career, will you please share your story with us that how finance happened to you?
Sure, sure. So I did my bachelor's in commerce and finance from the University of Mumbai. Moved on to starting my first corporate stint at Tres Vista, which was an amazing sort of entry into the world of finance, right? Because you're working firsthand with private equity managers. At least I was in the private equity team, so I was working firsthand with the fund managers based out of New York. So it was a great sort of experience for someone right out of college. And I think Tres Vista is known to be very, very sort of uh, particular about the way they train their employees, right? So it was a great step up from a college life to a corporate life. It's sort of an incubator in itself, right? So if you see a lot of people have moved on from Trezor to do some great things, right? Be it banking, be it private equity, be it venture capital. It's a great starting point for anyone looking to get into core finance. So I think I was lucky. I spent 2 years there. I was working with a private equity fund based out of New York. Again, that was a fund one. It just incorporated when I started working with them. So I got some very good experience on how a fund is set up, how a first time manager really sort of looks at his investments, how he sources them, how the Western way, quote unquote, of private equity works, right? Because till then it's all sort of been theoretical, where we've learned it in or read about it in books, but we've never seen how it actually works on the ground. So that was a great experience. While I was working at Resista, I was also studying for my CFA. So I completed my CFA level one right after college, completed my level two while I was at Tres Vista, completed my level three, and then moved on to venture capital. So I was at Tres Vista for 2 years, post which I took about an 8 month break to help my dad out with the family business. And then, I realized that my interest lied elsewhere, at least for the next 5 to 10 years, right? I wanted to sort of chart my own path, so to speak, find my own calling, and that's what brought me back to venture capital. And once I've been in, I think there's just no going back. It's a world within a world itself, and it's an amazing place to be.
So, at when you started your career with Tres Vista, were you awestruck with such corporate roles and different world? What you read in academics and what is actually out there in world?
So like I said, right, it's for most people, it's going to be their first stint in a corporate structure, right? Because most of their recruits come from college hires. So that step up is something that's very, very important, right? It's very easy for college students to just sort of start with a job that they don't really think too much about, because the supply and demand equation is obviously against a lot of the first timers in India, right? Where there are a lot of more people looking for jobs than jobs actually available. And that gets amplified in a competitive space like finance, right? So I think I was lucky to start at a place where I was really incubated, so to speak, right? I'm sorry for using buzzwords, but that's exactly what Presista was. It was a great, like, they really incubated your talents, right? They taught you everything that you needed to know to succeed in core finance, right? And that just doesn't include your sort of hard tasks like Excel, Microsoft Word. I mean, modeling, etc., is very, very important in today's world. Even though you don't use it as much, it's something that you really need to know. But apart from those, I think it's very important to pick up soft skills as well, right? How you talk to people, how you converse, how you network. Networking is something that's really not talked about enough, especially in the Indian landscape. I think that's a huge uh, sort of pill that we need to take from the Western world, right? And I think networking is going to be the next big skill that people can acquire in the next 5 to 10 years, especially in a competitive space like finance.
At least in India, where students think that don't focus on the networking part, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not really talked about as much. That's what I was saying. So I think it's a skill that very few actually look to acquire. And those who do, I mean, there are going to be a lot of mistakes along the way, right? Because it's very hard to cold email someone or cold call someone for the first time. But the more you do it, the easier it gets and the better you get at it, right? Because it's like AI in a way, right? You know, you start to, the more data points you collect, the more you know what's working and what's not, and then the more you improvise your approach.
It's like the you become anti-fragile, right?
You become
Once you're
anti-fragile,
fragile,
absolutely.
right? Absolutely. Okay, I read your blog, and there was this one topic about what you learned while preparing for CFA, and I could totally relate to that, being a CFA candidate, and it caught my attention very firmly, right? You mentioned about what it takes and what you learn across the journey. Now, if I may ask, what was the part that you struggled with, and how you overcame those struggles?
That's a good question, actually, because most of the questions around CFA are related to the curriculum, right? People don't really bother to get into the psychological aspects of it. But I think with my CFA journey, the hardest part was transitioning to the level 3 exam, right? This is going to be ancient soon because all of it is moving online. But back when I was giving my CFA level 3 in, I think, June of 2019, it was, there was a different structure, right? Half of the exam was written and then half of the exam was MCQs. Uh, so the essay questions were actually constructed responses, right? It couldn't be like most of us in India were used to a very quantity driven approach, right? Where the more you write is correlated to the higher the marks you're getting, right? Of you getting, which isn't the case here, right? It's a very international concept wherein you have to construct your answers very specific to the questions that are being asked, which is very hard for us because we don't come from that background. All of our schooling, all of our college experience has been quote unquote rote learning, right? Where
Right.
it's not very applicable. So I think that was a huge transition, especially from level 1 and level 2, which is simple MCQs, right? And a lot of people have not been able to cover that bridge from level 2 to level 3 because of the written section. Because not only are you writing constructive answers, but you're also writing it against time, because 3 hours is a very
Challenging.
yeah, it's a very concise time slot. So you have to work under pressure and you have to work well under pressure, which was something that wasn't very easy considering our educational background as Indians. But I think uh, there's proof in the pudding that we've adapted, right? A lot of Indians that do give I don't think the CFA Institute gives out the results, but from the Indian folks that I've spoken to, the pass percentages for level 3 were increasing when I was giving the exam, right? For people around me. So I think we've sort of managed to adapt to that. But as a student, that was the hardest transition to make. Apart from that, CFA was it's a great core finance course, right? For anyone looking to get into finance or looking to know more about finance or looking to do, I mean, I consider it like a master's in finance, right? If you're doing a master's if you want to do a master's in finance on your own time, you do a CFA. That's what it is to me.
Right. And one thing you also mentioned in your post that it requires out of you to form an opinion. What it really matters out also in the real world. You have to have an opinion in finance, right?
Yeah, one of the first things my boss, who's a fund manager, right? He told me you can't be part of the investment team without having an opinion, because you're not adding anything to the team. Then if you're not adding, obviously your opinion has to be backed by something, right? And opinions mostly are backed by two things, either experience or research. In terms of experience, I don't really have much. So obviously the more experienced folks in our team take care of that aspect. But for me, my I have to have an opinion that's backed by cold hard facts, which only comes from research, right? So if you have opinion that is backed by good quality research, then you have to bring that out, because otherwise there's no value add for having you on the investment team, right?
Correct, correct. And what I was asking about that, after having aced the exams, CFA exams, how is venture capital as a career in finance? Someone is looking VC as a career in finance.
Oh, right. I think VC is the least sort of core finance role compared to everything around. If you compare it to private equity or investment banking, VC is the least core finance um, stream out there, right? But it's just so fulfilling, right? You're working, at least in the early stage, you're working with companies around that are just born, so to speak, right? The idea has just been formulated. They're moving towards a vision that only they can see. And if you're part, if you see that vision with them, then it's just you sort of buy a ticket to the journey, right?
So you learn the business along the business, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. You're learning with them as they go along, right? And you're sort of, you have to visualize their success like they do, right? If you don't, then you're better off not investing. But there are so many opportunities that come along, right? I was just speaking to another colleague of mine, right? Like everything that we use on a daily basis, or a lot of things we use on a daily basis, is made by companies that didn't exist 10 years ago. Right from how you pay your credit card bills in the form of cred.
That's fascinating.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, my morning coffee is made by a company that didn't exist 4 years ago. The underwear that I wear is made by a company that didn't exist 4 years ago. There are companies that are doing so many cool things, both on the consumer side, both and on the ease of payment side, and there are just so many aspects that they cover that you don't even realize. If you just audit your phone
Right.
and see the apps that you have. I think everyone should do this. Just audit your phone, see the apps that you have, and see how many of those companies existed before the last decade, before 2010. I think a lot of them will have been born post the last recession, which was about 2009, 2010.
So VC has been an instrumental in promoting the business, right? Okay, if I may ask, moving on this same line, what is it like working at a VC fund? Is it thrilling as it seems or requires composure? What are the skill sets required along the way?
I think firstly, you have to be clear with what you're doing, right? There's a lot of work to be done, and there are a lot of streams. So I mean, like I was mentioning, right, VC is the least core finance role out there compared to the other streams, but it's also fairly unorganized within a fund, right? Essentially, you're the one who's like, it's not like private equity wherein the partner has to get the deals, and then the analyst associate are essentially executing on it. In most cases, of course, I'm trying not to generalize here, but in early stage VC, what happens is you have to go out and get deals as well. So you're constantly on the phone trying to sort of speak to incubators, accelerators, bankers. You're speaking to startup
Right.
founders on a daily basis. You're sort of doing work on the side on live deals that are pending. You're trying to catch up with your portfolio founders to get an update on what's happening with them. So you're trying to balance a lot of balls at the same time, which is a very unstructured sort of model when you think about it on a daily basis, right? So you got to have a lot of clarity on what task you're going to approach and how you're going to complete that before you move on to the next task. So clarity, I think, is huge. I think your sort of decisiveness has to be really high, because like I mentioned, you have to have an opinion, and your opinion has to be backed by a good quality research, right? uh, I can't go to my partners with anything that isn't backed by any research that I've done. So you got to be decisive in what you're doing, and you have to portray that to them with a level of confidence that can only be backed by research.
So it is a different skill that isn't taught in the academics, right?
Oh, absolutely not. I think every once you start working, right, there are a lot of these soft skills, so to speak, that nobody teaches you. You just learn them on the job. You learn them from your mistakes. You learn them from looking at other people's mistakes. There's nothing in the world that's theoretical that can prepare you for excelling at a real life job.
Okay, there are candidates. I mean, there are finance candidates who are aspirational, who like to pursue VC as a career. How recruitment occurs at a VC firm and how it happened for you?
So recruitment generally, like I said, right, supply and demand is very skewed in finance, and within the buy side, it's even more skewed, right? There's a lot more supply than actual jobs available out there, right? So you'll see a lot of the big funds don't even end up. You'll never see a job posting from a lot of the big funds. Mostly, what happens is the best bet to get into any fund is networking, right? You reach out to the analysts, associates, anyone on the team, uh, send just send them probably a LinkedIn email or an email and just ask them for their time, or just prepare an email which covers your your summary and brief. I think networking is the best way to get into a fund, and that's what worked for me as well, right? Anirudh, who's the managing partner at Artha, I reached out to him through I think 4 or 5 different sources, and after which I got a response from him. So it wasn't easy. It took a while. I think it took north of a month, but that's how it is. Networking is, anyone who asks me this question, I always tell them the same thing, right? Just reach out to people. You'll be surprised at how willing they are to help. It's just, I mean, there's this quote that I was reading the other day
Right.
from Tim Ferriss, right? Success is related to the number of awkward conversations you're willing to have.
Right. You also mentioned this in your post, in your blog you wrote.
Yeah, yeah, and I keep harping on about the same fact, but that's what works, right? Um, it just puts you on a pedestal above the other normal applicants. And what happens is, if you go in through a referral for the HR, it's like one step has already been cleared, wherein someone within the organization is forwarding your CV, right? So the odds of you moving on to the next round are much higher compared to you going in through the general pool.
Great. So far into the episode, we have learned that networking is one of that core communication skills one has to adapt and learn as soon as possible. Correct.
Yep.
Okay. Moving on from here, how does a VC work, starting with process from getting a deal to securing a deal and finally to exit the deal? How does things happen at a VC?
So every fund has a different structure that they work with, right? It really depends on the philosophy, the investment style of the fund, the culture of the fund, how the fund managers like to work, how the team likes to work. So a fund one will work very different compared to a fund two or a fund three, right? Where they have more structured rules or a more structured pipeline. What happens in a fund one is we're a startup that's investing into startups, right? Our culture is not set in stone. In the 1 year that I've been at Artha, we've built the culture as we've gone along, right? Some rules that existed when I joined that don't exist anymore. Some rules have been adapted. Some rules have sort of been moved here and there. So it really depends on the organization. But generally what happens is the analyst or the associate sources a deal. They do an initial call with the startup, with the founders, get a better perspective on the business, get more of an idea of the numbers, enough in not enough to deep dive, but enough to just take to their partners and have a 5 to 10 minute conversation about the deal. Post that, they pitch it to the internal investment team. So in my case, I have our two partners, Anirudh and Vinod, and our principal Gauri. So I pitch them a deal. Uh, we talk about the deals in specific for about 5 to 10 minutes. We typically have a 5 minute timer because in the early stage there are so many deals that we have to go through weekly, that we try to cap it to 5 minutes, but whatever, generally goes anywhere between 3 to 10 minutes. So we have a conversation on the deal. We see if we like the idea, what the sort of scope of the market is, how the founder is, whether his background excites us or not. And based on these criteria, we vote. If it if it goes through in the voting, we take it to a pitch call. So either one of the partners, Anirudh or Vinod, they do a pitch call with the founder. Post the pitch call, we do some more internal research. If we like the deal, we probably send it out to people in our network who have more of a domain knowledge of the space. We try to get some reference checks on the founders, etc. So post pitch call is more of a discovery stage wherein we start our deep dive into the company if we like it. Probably do a couple more follow-on calls with the founders, get a better perspective on the specifics of the business, and post that we decide whether we're going to invest or not. If we do decide to invest, it's the regular rigmarole where we issue them a term sheet, take them to IC, move on to documentation, and then we disperse the capital.
So it's a long process, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, see, we handle third party capital, right? It's not our money, which is why an angel network or a family office would be much more flexible when it comes to these timelines. But a fund is obviously going to take a longer time because we have a lot of compliance checks that we need to do before we actually transfer the capital, right? And these are non-negotiable. So there's nothing, regardless of how much we like the deal, these have to be done. So timelines definitely are slightly long compared to angels, but then again, the value add of a fund is definitely more, right? So it really depends on the founders if they want to play the long game, or depends on how quickly they need the capital as well. It's a very use specific case.
So you mentioned that it is other people's money, okay? So who are the key stakeholders in a venture fund and how high are the stakes in the investment business?
So we have the investment team. So generally, a venture fund is started by a quote unquote venturepreneur, right? Who is the managing partner, someone who gestates the idea for the fund, sets up a team around it, goes on to raise capital to back his investment track record or to back his thesis, and that's how a fund is born. So the key stakeholders on the team side is obviously the investment team. We have the manager and the team that he set up to help him with the investments. And then on the other side of the table, we have the LPs, right? These are the people who are pooling capital into the fund, and they're the ones uh, who sort of are the funders of
Right, right. Who are
of
who are financing your transactions? Who are you financing your business?
yeah, absolutely.
Correct. And you have spent quite a time in the industry and evaluated several hundreds of startups so far. And if we could know, what have you bring back to the table and what have you learned in the way in so much time?
I think I have learned a lot of things. Yeah, the uh, when you look at an industry from the outside in, right, it's very, very different to looking at it from the inside out. I think a lot of the rules that I thought were pertinent to the venture capital game as an outsider don't really apply when you really think of it from an insider's perspective, when you've gained some experience and know how things work, right? Um, I think even from a funding perspective, networking really matters, because if you come through a banker, or if you come through someone who knows the fund manager, or you come through anyone from the manager's ecosystem, there's a huge difference there as well, right? Because if it comes through a trusted source, then like I was mentioning with hiring, it's the same case here where it's past the first barrier of entry. So there's a little more trust involved with that deal, which increases the odds of the manager liking the deal. So that's something that's really important from a startup perspective as well, right? It's best to reach out to a fund through someone who's known to the fund's ecosystem. Um, so networking is a really important aspect both on the hiring side and on the startup funding side. One other thing I learned that I was surprised to learn was that every fund has a very different investment criteria, and I'll tell you what I mean by that, because there are a lot of deals that I have looked at, right, or that we have looked at, that we just wouldn't touch with a yard pole, right, where we know that, I mean, we just haven't liked it, but you turn around and within 2 months that company's been funded by a fund that's known to you. So everyone's perspective on a particular startup is going to be different. It's not like the public space where, there are certain specific number of metrics that people look at. And again, I'm not trying to generalize, but what most people look at, and that helps them make a decision. Here, you really have to visualize with the founders, right? See their vision for the company and see if you agree with that and you want to be part of it. So there's a lot more qualitative aspects to decision making compared to private equity or public market investing, which I thought venture capital would still have some quantitative aspects, which it does, but at the early stage, qualitative aspects of a deal actually have a lot of weightage, much more than I thought it does.
So, to tell you honestly, that's quite an interesting insight for me as well as our listeners, as far as I can say right now. Our last question, Farhan, for today, moving on from here, that as much as I know about you, that you have been an avid reader. Okay. Which book did leave a lasting impression on you? The book you would recommend, especially a finance student or professional, to read?
I think when I joined, right, the first book that my boss told me to read was Zero to One by Peter Thiel. I think that's a great start for learning about uh, startups in general, right? And it's a good book for anyone looking to break into venture capital. Um, Apart from that, I think for me the book that's made most of an impact is actually not a finance book. It's uh, it's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, and it's just about how creative people can cut through resistance, he calls it, right? Where every day is a different battle, and how you sort of get through procrastination and any of the other distractions on your way to achieving your daily objects, and then converting that or scaling that into achieving your longer term visions. I think that book really helped me get on the path that I really wanted to go on, and it's something that I go back to almost every 6 to 8 months, because it just has so many pearls of wisdom that it's very hard to capture, and you're sort of finding new pearls with every read that you do. So I think that's one book that people should definitely check out.
Farhan, what I believe is that when you converse with people from different perspectives, you get to learn whole lot of their experiences and they kind of go into your learning system too. We really learned a lot today, and with enough confidence, I can say that I'm taking some experience back with me after this discussion. And I hope that our listeners will take the advantage of the same. We are really thankful that you took out time for the episode today, and we appreciate that.
It was a rich episode for anybody keen to learn about the venture capital. Thank you so much, Farhan.
No, thanks, Imanshu. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for inviting me, and I hope this helps anyone who's on the fence about whether venture capital is meant for them, or someone who's new to venture capital trying to make inroads, right? I hope this really helps those people out there.
This is the aim of this podcast series. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Imanshu. Pleasure.
And that's a wrap up from our today's episode. Thanks for listening to Finance East podcast. If you like the episode, please rate and review us on Apple Podcast. We are also live on Spotify and Google Podcast. Also, you can share it with fellow listeners and do follow us for more. Stay tuned.